Hello and welcome back to Reading Time Somewhere. My name is Carolina and I'm your host. I want to start with a little bit of disclaimer just like I do in all of my other episodes. I am not English, I am Portuguese. So in case I see something wrong, which case I make some grammar error, I am so sorry in advance. So let's get going. When I was editing my last episode, I noticed that I had a missed opportunity to say that I had fourth wing. In my fourth episode could be about fourth wing, and I really missed it. I don't know how that's passed through me, but that's a truly missed opportunity. Now I have to speak about fourth wing in another episode rather than being on my fourth episode. It could be on fourth wing. We have other episodes to speak about fourth wing, but on this episode we are going to be talking about my weird passion about vampires, and since we are also coming to these Halloween vibes and we are arriving at Halloween time, I kind of want to make this a little bit more witchy and suggesting you guys a little bit more about vampire books. So, like I was saying, on this episode I'm going to be talking about all these vampire books, and no, I'm not going to be talking about Chaos from Once Upon a Broken Heart. That's going to be other episode when I'm going also to speak only about Once Upon a Broken Heart, because we received a news about Stephanie Garber that she is going to continue writing these books. So this is really exciting news for Once Upon a Broken Heart's lovers. I will want to continue like a story of Caravel to know like that story of Tella and I forgot his name. Oh my god, Tella and the Caraval Master daughter that they left that open on the third book. I really want to know. But yeah, so in case you love Once Upon a Broken Heart, we have good news. We are the Stephanie Garber is going to continue writing Once Upon a Broken Heart and the story of Evelyn and Jack. But this episode is not. I'm not going to be talking about chaos. I'm going to speak about actually vampires and vampire books, and I want to start saying, why do I have this weird obsession? I don't even know why do I have this weird obsession about vampires. It all started when I was a child. I don't know. I remember when I was 9 years old, and when I discovered Disney Channel and I started watching My Babysitter is a Vampire, I was obsessed with that show. I would watch it. I would record the episodes so I could watch the entire year. And I was excited always at Halloween era. Here in Portugal we have Carnival. Carnival is something that we actually grab from the culture of Brazil in midst of February or March. And even on Carnival I would always want to mask as a vampire. I don't know, but since I was a kid I have this weird obsession with vampires. I really wanted to be a vampire, but I hate the taste of blood. Because every time I cut myself, people would say, oh yeah, put your finger on your mouth, and I would hate the taste of iron. But yeah, I don't know why I have this obsession with vampires. But when I found out that we can read about vampires and not only watching movies or series, that obsession grew. Because I think that at least once a year, I have to read a book about vampires. I have to read at least one book. And this year, I think I've read 4 books. Last year, I read 3. I'm going to speak about them. And this year, I've read a total of 4 books. And right now, I'm reading 1 book as well. I'm going to mention it on my last book, on my last part, because I'm going to be honest, I don't know how to say the name of the book. But the book is giving me mixed feelings. I don't know what to rate, because when I'm reading a book, at some time in the middle of the book, I have an idea of what rate I want to give a book. But to be honest, on this book, I don't really know. I don't want to give it 3 stars, but I don't want to give it 4 stars either. It's not a 5-star book completely, but I don't know. Probably 3.5. I don't know. I'm really confused. It's really funny because one of these books that I'm going to talk about, when I was thinking about this episode, I was really thinking that one of the books was one of my favorite books until this year I read Caraval, and on this month I read The Knight and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but this book that I've read on October, I don't know, but I really loved the book. I loved the writing of Rachel. I found it extremely amazing, and I really want to read One Dark Window now. but we haven't right now. I'm seeing that we have a problem of buying books in Portugal, and Rachel Gilly is one of the authors that I want to actually buy the books, like my trophy books, and I already have bought last year as my birthday present, like the One Dark Window. And I noticed that she already had a second book, but most of the time when I buy one book, I don't want to buy the other book because I don't know. And that happened with Akhtar. I started buying the first book, and then I bought the second book without reading the first book, because I already know that if I wanted the first book, I would already have the second book. But actually, I didn't like to. In case you have listened to that episode, I don't judge you. In case you haven't, because that is a long episode. I didn't really enjoy the first book. So when I was reading the first book, I was like, oh my God, why did I buy the second book? But I started noticing that people were complimenting so much the second book that I really had to give it a try. And I actually loved the world of Arcane, of Akhtar. And yeah, it surprised me. But the first book was really hard to get in. But I'm not speaking about Akhtar again on this episode. It's just like a little bit of a thing that I remember about saying this, because one of the books that I've always mentioned on all of these podcasts is The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, which is the third book of Carissa Broadbent of the Crowns of Nyaxia, and that I've always said that I love it and things like that. But now that I've been reading other books, I've been actually thinking that maybe that is not actually as good as I think, but I'm not going to change my rating. I'm going to keep it because I don't think that I would want to change the rating that I give at the moment, because it was the feeling that I had while reading the book at that moment. So I don't think that I don't deserve to change the rating. I'm going to keep it as it is. So on the Crowns of Nyaxia, we have actually a lot of books. We have 6 books of the Crowns of Nyaxia, and Gracie Broadbent also on this week. I think on this week we had, for the book-ish community, we have a lot of news. For example, Gracie Broadbent, she launched the cover of her next book about other characters in the Crowns of Nyaxia. I'm not going to spoil it out. I think it's going to be launched next year too. But I really didn't have a deep, like on the last book, which is The Fallen and the Kiss of Dusk. I think she had like some pages of a brief of the next book, and I actually didn't catch me that much, because I also don't like the character that is going to be on the book. Yeah, that's my opinion. That actually happened too with Nesta, and I ended up reading it, but it took me 2 months to read the last book of Akhtar. But yeah, I'm going to give it a try next year, because I really love the Gracie Broadbent writing. But right now I'm with mixed feelings. But we are not going to be talking about this. We are going to be talking about all of these books that we already have from Gracie Broadbent. This whole series starts with The Serpent and the Wings of the Night, which I rated with 4 stars. What I'm going to say about this book, I rated it 4 stars, and at the moment I really wanted to rate it less than 4 stars, because when I was reading it, it actually seemed like a copy of other books that I've already read about vampires. But at the same time, it had some differences. It wasn't the same at the same time, but it was different too. So I don't know, it actually had mixed feelings, but I rated it 4 stars because the cliffhanger that you left on the end, it was a must. And then we have a little small book in the middle of this one, which is The Six Scorched Roses. One thing that I really find funny about this writer is that she writes smaller books in the middle of these huge books, where she presents these other characters that are going to be in the other books. Like, we know these characters beforehand. So when we are reading the main book and these characters show up, you're like, oh my god, I know the story about him. We know the backstory of the character. So she doesn't like leaves us without knowing what that character, who that character is, what is her backstory. Like, she doesn't make that a secret. So that's something that I really enjoy about this writer. So we have The Six Scorched Roses, which talks about other characters. It's Val and Lilith. I really I completely forget about saying what were the names of the main characters. But the main characters on The Serpent and Wings of Night is Araya and Ryan. And on The Six Scorched Roses, it's a smaller book about two side characters for the third book of the Crowns of Nyaxia. On The Six Scorched Roses, we have Lilith and Vale. And I think that for me, it's a small book. I read it on an afternoon. But for me, one thing that I gave a 5-star review on this book was because, I don't know, but for me, Lilith, even though she was in her 13 years old, Val was old, and making that into a relationship, but on the same hand, Rain was older too, so I don't think this is going to be a valid decision to say, but yeah. But I really love the love story. I think it's completely different from Ryan or Araya, but even though they were enemies to lovers too, it was different. And then we have The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. I've been always saying that this was one of my favorite books of the year, that I love reading it and things like that. I rated it 5 stars. I'm not going to change it because at the moment, like I was saying, it was the feeling that I had at the moment, and I loved it, so I'm going to keep it. And The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, it was, at the time, my favorite book because it was so different from the others. It's a huge book. I'm not going to lie about that. But the story of it didn't feel like a copy of the first book. It didn't feel like I read. I was reading like the same book, but with a different name and different characters, like it did happen on the first book. I really love it, and I think that the plot was amazing. The action was amazing. It didn't have that. It had a lot of political decisions and political things happening, but I think that it was really beautiful, and the last part of the book was also amazing too. So I decided to give it a 5-star. And on this book, I'm always missing my idea. Sorry. We also continued speaking about Oraya and Ryan, and we have like Lilith and Vile appearing. So it's amazing. Then we changed our view and we changed our characters too. We now have The Sighing Vampire Conqueror, which is another smaller book. On this book, I read it on summer. Like, for example, these first 3 books, I read it in January. And then I noticed that The Songbird and the Heart of Stone was going to be launched in June. So at the time, I was reading like Quicksilver. And when I found out that Quicksilver was going to be launched in October, I was so pissed because I hate reading books, and then the launch is like a month later, because I'm going to continue reading books throughout the year, and then when I'm going to give that book back, I'm going to read that book again, the new one, I'm going to notice that I don't remember anything, so I have to reread the book again, and that is something that makes me mad, but it's completely normal. For example, Quicksilver was one of my first books of this year. I don't remember anything about it. I just remember a few little things that caught my mind, that was on my mind, but I don't remember most of it. But so it actually happened too with these 2 other books of the Crowns of Nyaxia. But The Slaying Vampire Conqueror was a smaller book, also for us to know other characters, other side characters that appeared on the other books. but I'm actually going to give here a critic that I've noticed. But the two characters of this book only appeared in they only appeared like one time on the second book, I think. And I don't know, that actually made me mad because Val and Lily had a lot more appearance on the other books rather than on this book. So I think that they needed more. And since that, this is the idea for the other episodes, because she on the Slaying Vampire Conqueror. I'm sorry, I don't remember their names. They on this book they had like it's Selena and the other I don't remember his name, but Selena, she's an acolyte, and I've noticed that throughout this year I've been reading a lot of books of acolytes, and on the Songbird and the Art of Stone, Mishi is also an acolyte. So yeah, on the Slaying Vampire Conqueror, I gave it 4 stars because it's a smaller book. I actually enjoyed this book a little bit too much, but I don't think it deserved 5 stars. And then we have the Songbird and the Heart of Stone. Now we have the Songbird and the Heart of Stone because this book was a continuation of Mishi's story that she also appears in the other Crown of Nexia books. And on this story, she is actually in other country of the of this world, of the vampire world, the crazy Broadman created, and she's like there. She's jailed in there, and now she has to deal with this necromancy boy. And now that I'm seeing, there's a book that also has necromancy, but I haven't read that book. I just noticed lately because it's similar to this story, but I'm not saying that it's a copy because this book was launched this year. No, this one wasn't. It was The Fall and the Kiss of Death was launched this year, and the Songbird and Hearthstone I rated with 5 stars because I felt that the story was completely different from the other ones. I had the same feeling while reading it as the Ashes and Star Cursing. It was different. It was something unusual. It wasn't something that I haven't read in any other book. It wasn't seemed like a copy. So I decided to rate it with 5 stars. Until when I read The Fallen and the Kiss of Dusk, I felt like it was repetitive. I rated it with 4 stars. It's also the continuation of the Songbird and the Heart of Stone. We also be talking about Mishi and Asar story. And I felt, like I was saying, repetitive. It was repeating always the same plot, the same action. But in the main reason, what they are finding, it was also different in some parts. On this book, they dive a little bit more in the gods area. They talk more about the gods and what are the gods is, and she explores more about that. But at the same time, it felt more repetitive. It felt like I was reading this first book, The Songbird and the Art of Stone 2, but a little bit different. But at the same time, I rated it with 4 stars because of the development of the characters. It is worth it. These other books I'm going to be talking about are books that I've read last summer in 2024. And these books are actually the ones that I felt that The Serpent and Wings of the Night were copied. I'm going to explain this thought a little bit better. But these books were actually surprised me at most because when I was reading them and I noticed that they were a male writer, I had mixed feelings because on my mind, I don't know if this is about, I'm so sorry about saying this, it sounds really bad, but on my mind, when a male is writing a romance, I don't think that it's going to be as beautiful written as a woman's writing, trying to describe what romance is. But it actually surprised me, but on the other ways of the book that I'm not going to be explicit and saying what they are. They aren't, if I'm going to say that, because it's a little bit on that idea, but on the romance, it was really good. But basically, these books are based in Florence, in Italy, Florence. And I think on the last book, we actually go to Rome and then some parts of Europe. I don't know if it's Switzerland or it is others. I think it's Switzerland, like the bank. I'm saying it like you guys have read it. I'm sorry. But yeah, the first book that we have is the Raven. Basically, I think that one of the things that I really enjoyed about these books and why I rated them so high, apart from the last book, but I'm going to explain it later, is because the author, the Sylvan Reinhardt, he didn't make this main character, this girl character, like a normal girl, like a normal girl in the fantasy books, like in an idea of she's pretty, she's energized, she has a really good body, she's athletic. No, he didn't make the character like that. This character was so different from any other book that runners have read, and it was fantastic to see at least a man doing that. Because when you think about a man doing that, you don't think that is pretty. But basically, we have this girl. I don't remember their names. I've read them a long time ago. But we have this girl that she uses a crane because she has a problem with her leg. And she is not a skinny girl. She is more chubby. And she doesn't think that she's pretty. So when this vampire guy, catches her eye, she thinks that she doesn't deserve his love. When he calls her pretty, he thinks that he's lying. But one thing that I find really amazing is that this story, has a lot of little things about art history, and I love art history. I'm actually from the area of art, so that actually caught my eye while reading it, because any other books I've read I had really that mention. But like, she's joined with this vampire, and one day they are in his room, and he has a copy. And this girl, she works at the Uffizi Museum in Florence. She's a conservator. She restores paintings, and this vampire has like a copy of the Rebirth of Venus in his room. And she was like looking at him and looking at the painting, and she starts noticing that is the original painting of the Rebirth of Venus. And in case you guys know about the book Rebirth of Venus, or if you have an idea of what it is, or in case you don't, please go search it so you know what I'm talking about right now. But Venus in there, she is represented as not a skinny person, she has a normal girl, she has a normal woman body. She's like, she shows her womb, it's a little more extend more. I'm going to say this in English. It's more bigger. I didn't want to use these words. I'm sorry. But yeah, it's because we women have a body to carry children. So she wasn't represented as these skinny girls, very elegant. She had a very normal body, saying that. And when she looked at that, and the vampire, the man that she was with, she was like saying, "You are like her. For me, you are like my Venus." And I think that carried with me so throughout this book, throughout this series, that I had this idea like, you don't need to be perfect to be loved. And for me, this is like an applause to this author, to making a story like this, not using perfect girls, using this girl with a problem on her leg, that she's different from the others, and you can also still be loved. So for me, it's a huge applause, and I rate this book with 4 stars, because he shows these different ways of loving, and for the fact that she couldn't walk, and it wasn't a problem for him. So you guys are seeing, I hope that you guys are noticing what I'm trying to say, because it's completely different from other books. Then on this series we have The Shadow. If I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember that much about this book because when I'm reading series, sometimes I forget about the second book, and sometimes the story on the second book is the same on the first book. But I know that I rated it with 4 stars. And then we have the last book, which for me, I do remember this book. For me, this last book was a disappointment, 100%. Basically, they are traveling around Italy because they have to go to this emperor, and then in there happens something, and the ending for me stuck with me, and it was so sad because basically the main character, lost all his personality. Even though he's happy now, even though the decision was happier and the decision was his, for me, it still didn't make much sense. It was, for me, I don't know, I didn't really like it. I actually rated the other books with 4 stars, and on this book I rated with 3 stars because I'm expecting a very different ending to this story, and that disappointment. And now, to finish this episode, to wrap up this episode with my last suggestion of vampire books, I'm going to speak about The Bride by Haley Hazelwood. And this book was actually one of my first ever reads from Haley Hazelwood, and it actually surprised me a little bit much because as a non-native English speaker, I find out the English writing, the English way of the way she writes, very easy to read and to join as a Portuguese person, for example. I didn't find difficulties while reading it. I didn't need to stop reading, trying to search what the word means, what he was trying to say. It was easier to read. I think I read this book really quick because I really enjoy it. I rated it with 4.5 stars. Basically, this book talks a little bit about, about mating bonds, and it talks also about werewolves and vampires and joining. This book also is situated in like a more modern world, and not in this fantasy world very years ago, in this very fantasy world. It's about more modern. I think it's also because Haley as well, she's more known about writing romance books, and I think that this was her first ever fantasy book that she wrote. And for me, I think it was very lovely. And this story talks about Misery, which is a vampire. She's a daughter from this vampire superior from this region of this area of her city, which I don't remember which one. And then we have Loe, he is the alpha of the werewolves. And I think that this story was, at the beginning, was a little bit weird because I know that I think in the beginning of the year, I tried to read this book and the book wasn't really grabbing me. But I think that at the moment I was really not in the mood also to read Bride too as well. But later on the year, I decided to, I'm going to give a try on this book by Bride because I'm really curious about it. And so I started reading it. It was difficult at the beginning to grab my attention because I was really accustomed to this fantasy world where it wasn't in the modern world, and this one was in the modern world. It was okay. We have phones, we have computers, we have other things, and it was weird at the beginning, but then it actually grabbed me. And so I really love the way they show the different two types of, I don't even want to say monsters, but like really just two types of people, two types of I forgot to say it. These two types of genres, I'm going to say it like that, and showing how that also can be a love story, how that can be a different, but they can love each other as well. You don't have to be on the same clown. No same clown. You don't have to be on the same genre. I'm saying it's wrong. You don't have to be on the same thing to be loving. Like, you don't need to be a vampire to love a vampire. You can be a werewolf and be a vampire too. So I actually love this book, and Haley Hazelwood, which surprised me the most. And then I noticed that there are other books of romance of Haley Hazelwood that I also want to read, which I think one is a chemistry something, and one is chess. Chess something too. I don't remember the covers and not the name, the actual name of the books. But those are two books that I'm actually really excited to read. But yeah, this is my last book of my I have a problem with vampires episode. And now I was speaking about all of these books. If I had to pick one of these books to choose to like read it every year, if I could erase my memory and reading it again, I think I would love to. This is a difficult question that I ask myself right now, but I think I would love to reread the Crowns of Nicaea probably. I think it's because it's I don't know, but now it's splitting to the Crowns of Nicaea, the Separate Wings of the Night, and the Songbird and the Heart of Stone. I think I would love to reread it again and erase my memory if I could, only because the Songbird and the Heart of Stone. Because I think when I was reading this book, I think I completely missed saying this. I didn't remember most of the things that I read in the Serpent Wings of the Night. So they were saying some things that I actually didn't remember, if I'm going to be honest. And so if I could, I would reread it all over again, everything one by one, and not changing my book in the middle of it. And yeah, I think I would love to reread this one if I could erase my memory. And before I wrap up this episode, I kind of want to say the book that I'm reading at the moment. And the book that I'm reading at the moment, it was actually recommended to me by a friend that we were actually talking about. I was actually talking about my podcast, and I said that I was thinking about an episode about my problem with vampires and why I love vampires so much. And she's like, "Oh, so do you love vampires?" So you should really read this book. I love this book. It's about Dracula's first bride, and the book is A Story of Blood by C.T. Gibson. And I'm actually reading this book at the moment, and I was actually enjoying the book in the beginning, and the way it's written is completely different. I think the only book that I really felt it was different to was Emily's Wild Encyclopedia of Fairies. But that book felt more like a research diary, and it actually was. Like she was writing, and we were reading her research and her scientific explanations. While this book is more like letters from Constanta, which is the first bride of Dracula, to Dracula too. Yeah. And so this way of writing is different. And the first parts of the book, I was really speeding up the reading because I was really enjoying the book. But until the middle of the book, when it started happening decisions, it started happening things, I was giving mixed feelings. So I don't really know how I'm going to write this, how I'm going to form my opinion about these books, because I don't even know how to explain it too. So yeah, I'm still in 70% of the book. I still have 30% to finish the book. So I really hope that my opinion is going to be changed by the final of this book. I really hope that, because I think that the book is written in a way that it deserves more recognition, and I really want that. So I'm not going to suggest you this book already. I'm also going to give my opinion. This is like my opinion that I'm having while reading it at the moment. But yeah, and like I was saying, other book that I've read this month is The Knight and the Moth, but I'm going to save that to other episodes that I've been kind of thinking about. And now to wrap up this episode, I'm going to give you guys some news on the bookish community. When I was writing this episode, I was actually thinking about giving some news about in the vampire and witchy series, like suggestions and things like that, and news on it too. But I kind of record this episode a little bit later because in September was my first. I got back into uni, so I didn't have time to record an episode, and there are some live constraints that didn't actually let me record any episode. And right now, for a funny part, I decided to bring my microphone to my university city. And right now I am recording this episode because when I'm in my birth city, I am in the middle of nowhere. And on my university city, I'm in the middle of the city. So there's a lot of noise around, and that actually is going to be a constraint to record. And right now I am underneath a blanket so I can record without any noise from outside, because sometimes there's sirens from the ambulances, there's cars, there's people shouting, there's even doors people bring, and there's also the construction men working, because they're building apartments next to my house. So there's a lot of noise, and I was thinking I'm never going to bring my microphone and record episodes here. But I was having less and less time in my birth city to record episodes. And I really want to record episodes because it's my refuge. It's my way of escape from my normal university life, and also to relax a little bit myself and to be able to speak. So I decided to bring it anyways. And I kind of asked ChatGPT like 5 minutes before recording, because I was kind of thinking to record it on my desk, and it was so much noise. And he was like, "Oh, you can make a box," and I was like, "No." He gave me useless ideas, so I kind of just remember, I'm going to put a blanket, I'm going to make a fort, and I'm going to be underneath it, and I'm going to speak. And that's what happening right now. So in case you guys during this episode, and probably on the next other episodes I'm going to record while I'm still here, if you hear some background noises, it's just completely normal, because I am a human being, I'm living in a city. But if you hear them too much, or frequency, or very frequent, I am so sorry. But now on to the news, and to wrap up really this episode. Basically, also a suggestion about some vampire books, but they are like Once Upon a Broken Heart. They don't give too much focus on vampires. On vampires too, we have the Shadowhunter series. Personally, I never read Shadowhunters, the books, but I've started buying one book because it was 5 years on the book, I forgot the name, on a book little thing that they have annually here in Portugal. I decided to buy it, but I noticed that it was like one book from other continuation of the series. It was in the first book, but I was like, okay, whenever I have the energy to start reading Shadowhunters, I'm going to read it, because the only thing that I've watched of Shadowhunters was the series and the movie, and Shadowhunters is actually one of my comfort series, and Jane the Virgin is also one of my comfort series, but Netflix decided to take Jane the Virgin from Netflix, and we only have now Shadowhunters, so I have to rewatch Shadowhunters whenever I feel like I want to be cozy to. So it is also about vampires, as you guys can know. But yeah, and now for the news. We actually have, I think, when I was writing this episode, I was like, oh yeah, the second book of Mate, of The Bride, which is called The Mate, is going to be launched in October, but we are in middle of October, so the book is already launched. So in case you have read Bride, the new book by Alias The Mate is already launched. It was launched in the 7th of October, and now I think from in 28th of October we actually are going to have another launch book, but this one isn't actually about vampires or either way. It's just because I know, because it's a book that I've talked about on my last episode, and I love it really. I really love this author and this book, which is The Elder Witch, And the other which is going to be launched only the ebook, because I think that the physical book is going to be launched later. I think it's going to be in December. The ebook is going to be launched on 28th of October on this month. But yeah, now to really wrap up this episode and not going to speak a little bit more, because if I open up my mouth, I'm not going to share it. But yeah, so that's my witchy vampire fall reading journey and throughout this year. And I really would love to read, to know what is on your TBR for this fall and for these Halloween vibes that you have from these witchy vibes. And yeah, I just want to say it's always reading time somewhere, and right now it's time for witches, vampires, and a cozy fall magic. Bye!